Guide for you families, please stay tuned. Plo Lumumba said he think European Union don't want peace between Ukraine and Russia. And there's a question, why does Russia not want Ukraine to join NATO? Russia accused Ukraine of a military buildup of its own and demanded legal guarantees that it will never join NATO. Please watch the video. Drop your comment. Do not forget. Your support is our driving force for more updates, guide for you. Please comment, share, and like. Stay tuned and watch the video. Thank you very much.
But of course, is it possible to resolve this conflict? And I think it is, because what one sees is appetite for peace. Even the Europeans who, in my view, are reluctant to have peace, you hear them talking about a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. In other words, they are thinking of a period after the end of the conflict. The key arrow's head in this particular initiative from Europe are the French and the British. And their view is that they want peace on terms that are favorable, in my view, to NATO as understood by them, and by extension, Ukraine. But it must never be forgotten that the war in Ukraine has now become a proxy war, with the Ukrainians being pawns in a political chessboard. So that is one avenue of attempt at peace. There is also the American initiative. The American initiative is saying that certain concessions must be made. And not just concessions, that America must also benefit from this process. And that is the basis on which they were saying, we are going to intervene, but we also want some of your natural resources. And it is in that context that the Saudi process must be understood. So, in a nutshell, one sees a world that is fatigued by this conflict. And one sees the attempt at extending hands from both sides. Russia is saying, yes, we want peace, but remember why this war started in the first place. They are saying, not in so many words, remember the undertakings that were made in 1990, which were clear, not 1 inch more to the east, and that Ukraine should have that stance. The Americans are saying that if the price of peace is conceding some territory, the Ukrainians should consider it. But of course, the Ukrainians are saying no, no concession. So that it is a process that is not going to be easy. But what happened during the Easter period, what historians will now refer to as the Easter truce, is in itself an indication by Russia that we are prepared to engage in serious peace, but we are not going to do so in a manner that is going to undermine the fundamentals which formed the basis or founded the basis of this particular conflict. The Americans are now saying, really, this must happen. And if it does not happen, we will withdraw. And I think that is a negotiation tactic in order to tell the two parties that really we must come to the table. So when one looks at the crystal ball, one sees that we will have a process that is a little bit more engaging. It may be staggered, and ultimately it may be one that will lead to what in terms of peace is called a modus vivendi, so that we live and let live as we begin to resolve the issues that are at hand. That, I believe, is what one sees when one looks at this conflict. You know, in war, when territory has been gained, and that territory has been gained on the basis of giving protection to your own, remember that quite a bit of Ukraine as people whose inclination is to be protected by Russia. So even if the negotiations were to start, it's going to be very delicate in the sense that certain guarantees must be made. And one must compare with what we have seen in other parts of the world. We know, for example, that in the Middle East, there was a time when the Israelis had to concede some territory to the Egyptians for peace, but we also remember that they retained certain territory like the Golan Heights, like the West Bank, for security reasons. So a Russia that sees hostility around her, particularly from Ukraine and from the Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, is going to be very reluctant to make decisions which are going to jeopardize their long-term security. So territory is going to be one of the most difficult issues in this attempt at negotiating peace permanently. Of course, when I say so, I'm acutely aware that I'm swimming in the sea of speculation. It is a sea that is dangerous, that is has many problems. It has many things. It changes. There are too many variables. But history teaches us that our analysis must be informed by experiences from elsewhere. Sometimes history forces people's hands. Remember that both internally and externally, you see a Zelensky who is, in my view, desperate. Desperate in the sense that his presidency has been marred with a conflict that has undermined economic development, that has undermined social cohesion, that even within his own government, there are people who think that this war ought to have ended. Externally, we have seen accusations from the United States of America that he is a dictator without a mandate. So all these factors conjoined make him a very weak president, so weak that perhaps his strength only remains apparent because it is war. But if war were to stop today, one can imagine what would happen internally. Those who would want to say and to analyze the situation and say, did we have to go to war in the first place? Have you not, in a manner of speaking, toned us to the European powers and undermined our relationship with Russia, with whom we have long historical ties? So we are talking about a very weak president. We are talking about an individual who, as it were, is between the devil and the deep blue sea, between the hammer and the anvil. How we'll get out of it is for speculation. But I, in my view, think that he must think deeply and seriously about post-war Ukraine. How will he behave? How will he be dealt with? And it's not going to be easy for him to get out. He must, in my view, make concessions, be pragmatic, and stop listening too much to the European NATO powers, because he does not know what their intentions are ultimately.